Matt, it's good to see you again, my friend. I know you've been busy with the sales circuit. There is such high demand right now for companies to kind of get their to figure out, where are they going to go for growth. This is a conversation that you and I had offline. I think it's interesting. I love talking to sales guys because they are really on the front end of what's happening in the world. And data centers, AI is really driving a lot of the conversations we've had here on the podcast. And when I discovered you were with OptiCool, a company that focuses on that rear door heat exchange, I realized that this is one of the hot topics of growth, how companies are able to grow, how they're able to use co-location partners to grow. This is a space that you live in every single day. So I'm so happy to welcome you down to the podcast, our learning development podcast, to kind of pick your brain today to kind of figure out just the kind of pressure these CEOs are under, to keep growing. And this is why we're seeing such a boom in the AI data center space.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too, Tony. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. It is a very exciting space. It makes my job a little bit easier from a sales perspective because a lot of people are not only interested in having the conversation, but frankly, they just need to be in the know and have more clarity on what it means for them, not only today, but 5 years from now. So it makes my job a little bit easier. I'm glad to be here and talking to you about it.
It really does. And, for those of you in sales, you would rather someone buy from you than being sold to. And I think truly you're in a situation where people are buying.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, this is definitely a buying moment. So talk a little bit about the underlying pressure that you believe is existent, say with the Fortune 100, the CEOs, they're being forced to grow, right? They're always being asked by their shareholders. These are all publicly traded companies. Well, Fortune 100 they are, of course, but you've got some private companies too that could fall into that scale. And the commodity or the value out there is the data, right? They've got this enormous trove of data. How do they use it? How do they use AI? And so how do they go about this growth through a data center? How do those go together? How do those link?
Yeah. So let's start by the Super Bowl just wrapped up here a couple of days ago. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but the Super Bowl was dominated with commercials on AI. You saw Anthropic, you saw OpenAI, you saw Coinbase. You see all these companies that are utilizing AI to support their business, their go-to-market strategy, and how they enable their customers. What we're involved in Optical is we provide solutions to help them do that. So what it means for the customer is that they're trying to look at what their product and how they support their product is like. They have one of two choices. I either build it in my building that I already pay for,
Right.
which is the path that we see less take, or we start using co-location providers that specialize in hosting data centers. They not only have the power, they have the space, they have the interconnectivity, but they really specialize in making these things possible. So we see more and more CEOs going to a co-location model, and it's really just it's a necessity to support their business and the products that they provide.
So why is the high performance computing space so reliant upon cooling? I don't think people maybe really understand, just what's happening kind of behind the scenes. So why is it that I think you've got like I think I read something where you've got a new product that's come out that is specifically designed for the high performance computing, the GPUs, because they are getting hotter. What's happening in this space? Why is that so critical?
Yeah, we do have a new product. We launched in September of last year a 120 kilowatt rear door solution, which is the highest capacity solution in a rear door application on the market. And why customers need this is because if you think about AI, it's the most simplest term to think about it is it's a computer in a rack like the one that you see behind me. As you ask that computer to do more, it generates more heat as an output. The more compute that you have running through it, the higher the output of heat. And as you get into the highest levels of computing power, like what you're seeing from these AI companies, they generate a ton of heat. So what we do at Optical is we provide a solution to manage that heat more effectively, than our competitors on the market, and we do it in a way that's easy for our clients to deploy.
Yeah, I was reading something where it's more of you could even be like a bolt-on type of solution.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I
So
think that's like the problem in so many of these new techs is that the manufacturers are really being asked to be able to use what we currently have,
yep.
modify, build on, because first of all, it's expensive. I mean, just in general, tech, keeping up with things and growth. And then when you're forced to redo your complete infrastructure just to create a solution, it's very challenging. So I think it's really smart that you've got the bolt on. Now, I'm not a techie guy, but I would be kind of curious. I know you're in sales. Maybe you can just give us the 30,000 foot view. What does that mean? What is this called? A rear door heat exchanger. How does that work? Just give us the basics around that.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, Tony. So think about if you're a company, right? You already have your compute located somewhere. And we talked about co-location facilities before. Now you're challenged with, well, now that I want to add more computing power into my space I already have, how do I do that? Do I need to fully redesign the space that I either purchased or when I want to expand on that space and purchase the next? The simple answer is no, that you don't. There's technologies out there like optical where we provide what's called a rear door heat exchanger. And you can actually see it right there, other side, sorry, in the pictures behind me. What we provide is a non-invasive solution. Simply what that means is that the operators running the data center don't need to change their design of how they deploy cooling. What we enable them to do is you take off the rear door that already comes with the cabinet that holds all the compute, and we adhere our door to that existing cabinet. So it's an easy plug and play without any physical redesigns, and we can handle that increased density and higher heat load that we talked about earlier.
All right, that helps because from what I had heard, most of the cooling was happening through some kind of a water or some kind of a liquid. So this is different from that.
Totally different than this. So there's
Is that
two
kind of like your go-to-market? Is that like your main point of differentiation? Because I've heard a lot of people kind of complain about the water usage.
That's a big one. Yeah. So there's two different technologies on the market. There's a water-based solution that's called a single-phase solution. Basically, think about it as a liquid water. And then there's a two-phase solution. What optical provides is a two-phase solution, and we actually use refrigerant to enable the extraction of heat. And it's not a new technology.
Oh, like a
It's out
refrigerant.
there.
I mean, yeah.
It's out there. The technology's out there. We're just applying it to a data center application where it's most needed.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the correlation is between that and HVAC. I don't know that we need to go into that, but that's what happened. That's what I thought of. Like that refrigerant, kind of draws the heat in, and then it's able to kind of flush it out. You've talked a little bit about the co-location environment, and I want to set the hyperscalers kind of to the side because they kind of dominate this space in general, but for the CEO who's looking to just expand or kind of take advantage of all this data, they go into co-location. What exactly is the ecosystem? Like, what is it? What are all the components that are required for this co-location to be efficient? More efficient, that they're choosing that than building it, and managing their own.
So there's three major constraining factors. There's space, there's power, right? How much energy you need to physically run your data center. And then it's basically, where is that data center located? Do you need it located in a centralized location to reduce latency? Latency is basically when you see that spinning clock on your computer because something's loading. That's latency, how long it takes for something to load. So as the CEO, they're thinking about those three times, or their CTO is thinking about those three things every day, because that's what physically makes the business run. And then it's the cooling and the other ancillary technologies that support those decisions.
As a staffing company, we've got a couple of different lines of business. One is more on the general labor side. We do a lot of general labor within manufacturing and warehouses. But then there's the other space where we do quite a bit of work in, and that's more of the direct hire, much more skilled. So, I think the workforce is kind of looking at these data centers and trying to figure out, you know, where's a path for us, and I know you're on the sales side, you're not an engineer, but just in your opinion, what are some of the key, maybe, workforce positions, maybe job titles? Where do you think we're going to see the most kind of hiring, if you will, inside these, say, co-location
Yeah,
spaces?
and I live it every day, Tony. So we have a service arm to our organization, and as we scale our business and go to more customers, the skilled labor part is definitely a constraining factor. There, you'll talk to anybody. There's just less skilled labor out there in the market, and for these mechanical, electrical engineers that are out there doing work in data centers, they're definitely in short supply. We see often from our customers that we work with that they're constantly in a cycle of not having enough or needing more. So having a technology like optical that really kind of provides that less skilled labor is needed kind of fills that gap that we're seeing in the market with less skilled labor. But if I was to guess of what positions are going to be needed in the future, it's more of what we're seeing now. It's we're on the path already. It's just going to be expanded.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a sales guy, it looks like you have been charged with scaling. And we talked a little bit about this kind of off air. Salespeople, you have a background, you're very good at growing a business organically, and you understand how to kind of slowly, methodically, referrals and different techniques kind of grow organically. It's a slower, measured pace. You have other businesses, and I suspect your business is more like this. When you have a technology that gives you an advantage, you want to scale. You want to move. You want to move as fast as you can, and you've been asked to scale. And so, if you put your sales hat on for a minute and talk to our sales and marketing folks, what is key when it comes to scaling, say, versus taking an organic approach? What are some of the things that a salesperson should be looking to do?
So in our business, we call them force multipliers. What we do is we look for technologies, companies, people that are force multipliers to our go-to-market strategy. So if we look in the data center business, what we're seeing right now is that we're seeing decisions that are being made in different ways than they have been in the past. So in the past, you had a single person that was making these decisions because it was more copy and paste of how you deployed, where you deployed, what it looked like. And now that everyone's business is scaling, what Optical is personally doing is we're looking for those force multipliers to our business to amplify our voice in the market. So it's the people that are trusted advisors, the people that have local relationships, the people that have worked with these operators for many years in a lot of cases that can provide more solutions to fit the needs of the clients that they already have relationships with. So Optical is very much using force multipliers in our business to get us closer to the people that are making these decisions for data centers. And that's really the way that we're enabling the scaling and the giant market demand that we're seeing.
Yeah, so I guess that's really the trick then. Whatever industry you're in, you have to figure out where are the force multipliers. Did you have a background in scaling before you came here to Optical, or is this a trial by fire for you? What's the honest here?
No. To get honest with you, I'll get vulnerable here for a second. I didn't have a background with it. Thankfully, at Optical, we have an exceptional team behind us. I have a couple people on my team that are just really great, that have done this before, that have scaled businesses. So I am the product of the people around me, thankfully.
And that is what a great organization should be, quite frankly.
I totally agree.
And that sounds to me like that servant leadership model anyway, is that, you empower and support the great players on your team and let them go, let them go and give them what they need. Yeah. So I guess that really is the trick, and I think through that as well, like, how do I identify what is a force multiplier? Was there an exercise that you went through to kind of think through that kind of critically? Like if you're not in this industry and you're in some other random, like what advice would you give to try to determine what is a force multiplier?
Yeah, so I'll give you specifics talking about our business, but I think they carry over to any business that you're in. So at Optical, we looked at where the decisions were being made. For us, there are agents out in the market that have long supported the data center community by providing a portfolio of solutions. What Optical did is we saw in the market those decisions being made for a lot of other parts in the data center, but not for cooling. So what we looked at is how do we enable those people that are already involved in the decision-making process and give them more access to the parts like cooling that are critical to running the data centers. So at Optical, if you look at our webpage or our LinkedIn, we're very vocal about it. And we say that we are channel first. We enabled our channel partners to support our solutions, and they are physically our force multipliers in the market. But if you're in a different market, my suggestion would be looking more closely at where the decision makers are made or where the area of interests are being made. And then think about if there was 5x the demand, or if these were happening in more locations, what would need to happen in order to support that future state? That's kind of how Optical approached our business and why we're really happy to publicly say that we're channel led on the data center industry, because we feel like that's a huge differentiator to who we are as a company.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's good because you have to start somewhere. You have to kind of think through, where would you go? Who are the decision makers? How are the decisions being made? And what would happen if it was 5X? Yeah. Well, unfortunately or fortunately, staffing and workforce is not changing. You're seeing it inside of your data centers, the co-location centers that you're working in your partnerships. It's an ongoing battle. And I think the big challenge that we have, I think we share this, is that we need more people to take a look at careers that may not necessarily take them into college, but more, technical and trade schools, things that are very hands-on. And I think we can all agree, that's a problem that really kind of needs to be solved. And
100%.
Not an easy one.
I totally agree, Tony. And we were just joking around about this the other day. My wife was giving me a hard time. She said our plumber has 3 houses, and she said think about what that means for our daughter. You know what I mean? Like it's not always that college is going to be a necessity in the future. And nowadays, look at the data center behind me. They can be involved in some really cool industries. Skilled labor as far as the data compute size is like cutting edge of what we're seeing in the market. So the skilled labor can vary dramatically, but the need is evident.
Yeah, and I think what I have discovered is that there's a social conditioning that needs to change because parents think the kids need to go to college. It gets talked about that way in high school, and there needs to just be a change in conversation. It just needs to be considered. It's okay not to go, because everyone has seen this. You drive through the neighborhoods. Anywhere you're driving, come springtime, and all the neighborhoods put those banners up to show, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, I do.
And they, it's like you want to see your kid's name up there that they've graduated, but it's the college they're going to. And a lot of times it's like they're going from here to here, and it's just become this big prestige thing. And it's like, anyway, I'm preaching. I feel like we need to have a one column that says, trade school, plumber, electrician, because that's where I think the demand is certainly coming.
I agree.
So when you look ahead, and I don't know if you want to touch on this or not, but I'm always interested in where the growth is going to occur. We're seeing data centers in different cities. Sometimes there's regulatory pressures. I mean, where do you see the most growth occurring for these co-location sites? Because you mentioned obviously proximity is important. You can't have latency, so that causes some challenges. So sometimes you have to build them closer in. What's your take on the future kind of footprint of where these need to be?
Well, if you look at the market right now, Tony, where we're seeing the biggest growth is in areas where land is readily available and power is relatively cheap. So we look at Texas as being the biggest market. Louisiana, you see projects like Stargate being announced. And there's reasons for that, right? It checks both boxes. They have space, they have power, they have land. So when you start looking in the future of where other places where you could be seeing that, I think some of the markets could be further developed. Like you look at areas in the Midwest, you look at areas in the Southwest, like Utah and Nevada, they could be further developed. I think that where those boxes can be checked, where there's relatively inexpensive land and relatively inexpensive power, you're going to continue to see more data centers being built.
How much research has gone into using solar or other alternatives for energy? And I just think about comments I've heard from Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk talking about they want to put their data centers in space. So they're constantly near the sun. I know that sounds it sounds like the Jetsons, honestly, to think about that. So back down here on Earth, reality, where we are, is solar, is that a viable solution for energy, or is it just drawing too much?
No, can't speak specifically to solar. It's outside my area of
I
expertise.
see.
But what I can tell you is I was just at the largest conference in of the year, PTC, just a couple months ago.
Wasn't that in Hawaii?
It was. I tried to hold
Oh,
out that detail, but
see,
you
I
called me
knew
on
it.
it.
I knew it. I'm calling you out. That's it. Talk about a boondoggle. Did you actually work?
I don't think I saw the beach more than three times, but the benefit was the people that were there. It was there were some of the people that are cutting edge in the industry, and I can tell you, even though I'm not an expert in alternative power sources, they were well represented in that conference, which leads me to believe that there's people much smarter than myself that are already working on that problem and aligning solutions to the need. Because what you touched on is the need, and it's obviously there. The grid can only support so much power. You talk to anyone trying to build a data center, it's hard to get the power, it's hard to support it, it's hard to get all the necessary pieces to stand up a data center that support the power. So alternative energies are going to continue to be a hot topic of conversation as we move forward.
And I'm sure if we have any investors that are listening, when I say SMR or I say, small modular reactors, I think that's like a little flag that goes up because uh, I, for one, feel like that is a fantastic solution for, small, localized, high power energy efficiency. We just have to get the regulatory kind of red tape kind of shrunk because bringing these things online just takes so long. I mean that really becomes kind of the challenge that you're in. It's like you want to scale, you have the product, and yet you've got these other regulatory hurdles, right? That you've got to kind of fight through. So it's kind of a fine line you must run. I would imagine when you're doing your own sales planning, right? You have to have the reality of we just can't find the power in some of these spaces.
Very much so. When we start talking to a client or very early on in the conversation, we have discussions on how much space and power is available. And some of the times it's, hey, we have it available, it's just not being used. But more often than not, it's they're trying to get more off the grid or they're waiting for some type of regulatory approval to get access to more power. So we see it every single day.
Yeah, yeah, that I can see that. Well, I also saw that you had formed a new partnership with a co-location company recently. Is it? Am I saying this right? Sabe?
Sabi, great partner of ours,
What's
Sabi
it again?
Data Center.
Sabe?
Sabi, yes.
Sabe Data Centers.
So Sabi is a great partner. We're really excited to announce our partnership. What we like about Sabi is that not only do they have a great portfolio of spaces available, but they have a great team working behind them. As we kind of were looking for partners in the market, Sabi checked all the boxes for us to be not only somebody that was thinking differently in the market, but that they had the people behind it to support that thinking differently methodology. So we're really excited to partner with them because what they're doing is they're providing their customers with solutions in a way that's easy to deploy, which is really goes hand in hand with our technology in the way that I kind of described to you earlier about how we're making it more accessible.
Right. The more modular kind of bolt on. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. We were just talking about creating your partnerships and looking for those force multipliers. And it sounds like you just landed one. So congrats to you and your team. It's always exciting when you can put one on the board, and now you just maybe look to execute and go to the next one.
Exactly. I think that as you look for force multipliers, being strategic about partnerships that you build is critical to that business. And we feel really good about where we're at and where we're positioned, especially with partners like Sabi.
Well, so what's the future hold for you? Are you just going to just find more excuses to go back to Hawaii, try to set up other conferences?
So for optical, the future looks like how do we enable bigger solutions for our customers that solve more challenges. So the future is bigger, the future is faster, and optical is here to support that.
I would definitely say the future is faster. I definitely would. And, I think we're seeing more adoption every day with AI because I think your casual user just uses Claude or they use Grok or Chat GPT, but there is so much more to it. It's not like just this is your Google search that you've replaced. We're talking about high performance computing that is literally the backbone of some companies, some industries. You mentioned the Super Bowl. I think we have a little some. I'm not going to take full credit for the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, but it might have something to do with that. They're part of my podcast setup. I mean, it could.
It definitely could be a factor.
It could have been a factor. But the industries that are being developed literally around AI and AI solutions, to me, that's where the future is. It's incredible, and it's pretty exciting for you. You're, I would say the front end, but really you're the back end.
We are.
You like that?
We're the grease on the skids that keeps everything moving. So
I went with something that sounded a little better than grease. Because I'm sure there is no grease involved in this beautiful application. But anyway, Matt, listen, great to finally catch up with you on air about this because we have talked several times before, and I was like, you need to come down and just kind of share some of your knowledge with the folks here so they can learn a little bit more about what's happening and the challenges and the bottlenecks that we're seeing, in the data center growth space.
I appreciate you having me, Tony. Thank you so much.
No problem. We'll see you again next time, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.